Well, we're going to continue in our Ecclesiastes series called Under the Sun. The idea being that everything under the sun, everything in this world, everything of the world, everything that exists that is not God, we began to have this conversation with that it's like a vapor. Last week we opened up with the word, and the Hebrew word is havel. And it means vapor, mist. It's this intangible thing that is there for a moment and gone the next. And we talked about how all these things in this life that we're constantly trying to chase down at the end of the day are vapor because they can't sustain us and they're not permanent and they don't last forever. And any time that you build your entire foundation on something that is vapor, it's like building your house and putting your foundation on the sand, right? It's there 1 minute like a sand castle. It's grand, it's big, it's elaborate, and the next minute it's totally gone. And so would it not be important for us to know then, well, what is the vapor? Where are those areas where it might be pitfalls in our life for us to try to build our foundation on, to make our identity or our focus or our life about this thing, only to later find out that it is vapor? And so we set up the idea of what's happening here in Ecclesiastes last week, and we're going to continue over the next few weeks to talk about some of these vapor items that we try to build our life around, that we're all pursuing in one shape, form, or fashion, and discuss what it means to examine them for what they really are, and then what it means to find something true and solid to build our foundation on. And so over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about wisdom, we're going to talk about pleasure, we're going to talk about work, we're going to talk about possessions and time. And I think those things alone make up a good portion of what we spend our day doing. Today, we're going to start with one of those foundation things, and we're going to focus on wisdom. You know, as we are bringing our kids up here, it draws me back to thinking of my childhood, and I was very fortunate to have parents that are loving and kind and wanted to raise me into the church, and they're just good people. And my dad, being the humor man that he is, would have these nicknames for him that we would have to call him to get what we wanted, basically. And so my sisters was, my dad is so good looking. And I might have to reinstitute that one as we're coming along. So that one might make it into the Stokes family tradition. But the one that my dad had for me was to look at him and go, "Oh, wise one. Oh, wise one, can I please have another snack?" You can imagine how much he loved that. And nowhere did my dad really, try to, in this like pretentious state, believe he was the super wise ultimate person. It was a fun, affectionate nickname. But from that day was true, and even into today, I so appreciate my dad's wisdom. He's not the wisest man that's ever lived, but I still call him on the regular to be like, "Dad, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? What's your take on this? What have you experienced in this?" Like, I'm so hungry to draw from his wisdom because I trust him and I know that he has lived a long life and done a lot of things and has just gained much wisdom. The problem is that we're looking into is no matter how wise my dad is, his wisdom has not been able to be really fully transferable in so many lessons that I've had to learn on my own and gain my own wisdom. And no amount of his wisdom has been able to end any of the problems that I truly have in my life. And if only wisdom was this thing that just like snowballed and accumulated until generations down the road, like there was no struggle because wisdom continued to compound and we figured everything out and we had all of the answers. And if that were true, would we not have figured this out long ago? But generation after generation, we have wisdom and forgotten wisdom and new wisdom and relearned wisdom. Ecclesiastes' warning against wisdom is that it's not actually against the concept of wisdom or even the pursuit of wisdom. Wisdom is something to be valued, pursued, and even asked for. In the New Testament, in James 1:5, it says, "Now if any of you lacks" what? Wisdom. He should ask God, who gives to all generously and ungrudgingly, and it will be given to him. See, having wisdom or even asking God for wisdom is not a wicked thing. inerrantly. In fact, Solomon, who much of this book of Ecclesiastes is connected to, this wise, like the wisest man who's ever lived, who in his ruling and in his leadership was given an opportunity to ask God for anything. God looks at Solomon in 1 Kings and he says, name it. What do you want? And Solomon looks back at God and he goes, listen, I'm among all of these people to lead them and rule them. I want to know the right thing to do, and I want to know the wrong thing to do, and I want to know how to move forward in this. God, give me wisdom. Solomon asked in 1 Kings 3 for a discerning heart to govern God's people well, to know right from wrong, and to act accordingly. And God is pleased with that request. And God gives Solomon wisdom. Just like it says in James 1, he says he gives him an abundance. Ungrudgingly, he gives this man wisdom. So wisdom matters, and we're going to see that today. And wisdom is going to be a theme that echoes throughout the book of Ecclesiastes. It won't be the last time we talk about it, because that is something that is so foundational to our human experience, is the acquiring of wisdom. What is wisdom? It's not just information. Wisdom is knowing what is right and wrong and what to do about it. Wisdom is knowledge applied. Now, how can we know that? Because I know that there are a lot of very knowledgeable people who are not very wise. Met them? Know them? Don't look at them right now. There's a lot of really knowledgeable people. They know a lot of things, but they lack the wisdom on how to apply those things. Conversely, there are a lot of really wise people that are not as knowledgeable as other people. Their encyclopedia of information may be smaller, but their wisdom is great. And so the accumulation of knowledge does not necessarily equate to receiving wisdom. So the issue in Ecclesiastes is not whether wisdom is good. The issue is what happens when the pursuit of wisdom becomes our foundation. And I think if we're honest, that's such an easy twist to just fall into our life, where the pursuit of something good, say, Lord, give me wisdom that I may know you and know how to live for you in this world. Quickly and subtly becomes a shift of like, I just want wisdom. I want to be wise. And if I'm wise enough, then I can take care of myself. And if I'm wise enough, then I'll have what I need. And if I'm wise enough, then I'll know what to do. And the pursuit of wisdom can then become a substitute for the pursuit of God and the wisdom that he gives. The main point is that the pursuit of wisdom is good, but the pursuit of wisdom reveals the limits of wisdom under the sun. Wisdom is good, but it has limits. And so we start in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, and we pick up where we left off last week in verse 12. I, the teacher, remember the teacher is the author. He has connections in some form of teaching to either being the words of Solomon, Solomon himself, or someone who is referring back to the wisdom of Solomon. But he says, I, the teacher, have been king over Israel in Jerusalem, meaning I have the most power and the most authority and the most access to resources. I am at the pinnacle of what I am able to achieve and do and have power and influence over. Verse 13 says, I applied my wisdom, I applied my mind to examining and exploring through wisdom all that is done under heaven. It's a big task. That's a big task. There's this illustration that I really love of like kind of bringing humility into knowledge and wisdom. And you walk up to a whiteboard and you draw a big circle on it. And you say, if in this circle is everything that has ever been known or is currently known, everything in the circle is everything that has been known or is currently known, and everything outside of the circle is everything that has not been known yet. Individually, how much of that circle would you fill in with your knowledge? Right? It's funny, I did this with some high school students, and I had one come up and put a little dot, and I had another come in and fill in about half of it. And I was like, that checks out. That's about right. Right? Like at best, we're this dot of individual wisdom or knowledge or collection of information, and that's in the circle of everything that is known, and that doesn't include everything that is still unknown. And the teacher says, I applied my mind to examine and explore through wisdom all that is done under heaven. This was not a little pursuit or a temporary one. This was a life endeavor. This was a major mission being taken on by the teacher. And I think that feels really familiar. This is not a casual curiosity. It's a serious pursuit. He wants to understand life. He wants to make sense of the world. He wants clarity. And in our day, there's almost a curse that comes with the access to knowledge. We have more access to information than we have ever had before. And especially now with this revolution of AI, where we can get in and just in a chat be like, tell me everything I need to know about this thing. And in seconds, it's at our fingertips. That was not how he got to experience this. This was painstaking and laborious in a pursuit, but with us now, with this access to all of this information, we now can all become experts on any given topic, and the trap is that we must now feel that we must be an expert on every single topic for us to have any kind of trust in that thing. I can't hardly purchase anything, buy anything, and I have to know everything about it. All the good, all the bad, all the reviews, and I'm stuck in knowing and knowing and knowing and knowing. And it feels like I can't trust it until I've researched it enough to fully understand it. We want complete knowledge before we make a decision. We want enough information to feel secure. Is that bad? It's not necessarily bad. Where it's bad is when it becomes we are the focus of our knowledge and wisdom instead of understanding that there is a wisdom beyond our own. And so the teacher goes on to show us that the pursuit of knowledge is not a place where we can build our foundation. It is one of those havel items, not evil, not wicked in its inerrance, but in its permanence. He continues and he says, God has given people this miserable task to keep them occupied. God has given people this endless pursuit of knowledge to understand, to know, to discover, to explore. This endless pursuit, and it's miserable. He says, I have seen all the things that are done under the sun and have found everything to be futile, vapor, havel. It's a pursuit of the wind. Now, when you say that of someone, if you're like, yeah, he's out there chasing the wind, is that a positive? Not typically, right? Like you're doing something fruitless. You're putting your whole heart and soul and energy into getting out there and chasing this wind, which you'll never catch. It's this fruitless pursuit. Here's what that phrase made me think of. We are so proud of ourselves, and in many ways, not that we shouldn't be, but we've invented a lot. We've created a lot. We have solved a lot of problems. And we can start to really pat ourselves on the back in this day and age, in this era, in this culture, and particularly in the United States. Like, man, we've figured it out. We are the people of people. One of these things that made me think of where we have been given this miserable task of pursuit of knowledge to solve problems that never really fully ends comes in the form of waste. A simple one is this. We can get to outer space, guys. What is our best solution to trash? The same thing children do with their toys when they're done with them, right? You just put it in a pile. All of this wisdom, all this knowledge, all this technology, all this experience, and that's like, we're just like, make a big pile and then push it down and then make another pile. And then when that pile's full, start a new pile. Here's another thing that made me think of, and really genuinely trying not to be gross, but aren't we all thankful for toilets? And I look back at American history and I think about the life that they had to live and all the things that they had to put up with. And like, I think about living in Colorado in the middle of winter and it's time. And you're looking out the wooden shutters being like, so I got how many yards to, to a hole in the ground? Like that's not pretty similar to the pile of trash, right? And so I started looking into that. I was just really curious. And there was a man named John Harrington that first described the modern flush toilet. God bless John Harrington. In 1596, right? 1596, that was a long time ago. 1596, and you imagine people starting to get excited of like, no, wait, what? And it flushes? And then it's gone? The first flushing toilet in the United States was installed in 1829. That's a long time away. that they had this concept. Most of us would assume that kind of system, that technology is pretty modern in development. And so I think of guys like John Harrington, the men who came after him to make that kind of description a reality, who have marketed and put these things and installed them and all of the infrastructure. And then in 1922, so 1596, 1829, in 1922, excavations near India in the Mohenjo-Daro revealed that ancient civilizations had already developed flushing toilets and advanced drainage systems thousands of years earlier, like 4,000 years earlier. Meaningless pursuit. 4,000 years ago, they went, you know what we should do? Today, we're like, you know what? It's pretty great. Look how smart we are. There's nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes is not denying invention. It's denying that invention becomes salvation. That anything in invention is a possible way for us to escape the realities of this world. If we could just make enough, create enough, have enough new, enough understanding, enough wisdom, enough technology, enough invention, then everything will be okay. And way before we have come to this question, so did the teacher. And the teacher said, I've tried it. I built it. I made it. I've earned it. I've learned it. It's like chasing the wind. And then we read this really important verse in verse 15. And it says, what is crooked cannot be straightened. What is lacking or missing cannot be counted. Wisdom can identify what is crooked. It can help you see where things are bent and distorted and broken. It can even tell the truth about what is missing in the equation. What it cannot do is straighten the crookedness or supply what is lacking. It's just a new way to pile up trash. That is a major limitation. In other words, wisdom can diagnose but not heal. Wisdom can see clearly but not solve permanently. And wisdom can recognize, but it cannot redeem. That lands pretty squarely on us, that we live in a world that often treats clarity as if it were salvation, that treats having more insight or more data or more analysis or more understanding, and we assume that if we can just figure it out, then it will finally be okay. How many self-help books have been written? And how many more will be written before Jesus comes back? And how long is it going to take us to figure out that we can't help ourselves? Can we make things a little bit better? Absolutely. Absolutely we can. And then the next problem comes up. And then we need a new solution and a new understanding and more wisdom and more information and more data. And life is constantly throwing these things at us that we don't understand and don't know how to put words around. And we land our whole life and our whole pursuit in figuring it out, so that we will finally be okay. And Ecclesiastes is pushing back on that instinct. Wisdom can help you see clearly, but it cannot straighten what is crooked. Continues in verse 16. He said, I said to myself, see, I have amassed wisdom far beyond all of those who were over Jerusalem before me. Which I really like this, because if this is the king of Jerusalem and he's referencing Solomon, you know who all of the kings were before Solomon in Jerusalem? Just his dad. What a like. I am so much smarter than everyone else who has ever ruled as the king of Jerusalem before me. Just dad. And my mind has thoroughly grasped wisdom and knowledge. I applied my mind to know wisdom and knowledge, and in contrast to know madness and folly. And I learned that this too is a pursuit of the wind. Verse 18, for with much wisdom is much sorrow. As knowledge increases, so does grief. The teacher has not dabbled in wisdom. He has gone deeply into it. That's a heavy line. And again, I think if we're honest, it might really resonate with us. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge we attain, the more grief. Here's what it made me think of. In our modern language, or my southern modern language, which may not be that modern, the more you know how much you don't know. The more you gain, the more you experience, the more out of control life can really feel. The more you're aware of what's actually happening in this world around you, of the extent of brokenness and desperation and darkness, right? The harder and more desperate things can feel for you. Live long enough and you'll experience many difficult things. And wisdom often comes with a growing awareness of pain, of loss, of complexity, and of limitation. The clearer you see, the more clearly you see what you cannot fix. We're going to jump over to Ecclesiastes 2, verse 12. So you can turn over to the next chapter, and we're going to see kind of a continuation and a bit of a response on wisdom, a clarification that wisdom isn't bad. It's just not God. Ecclesiastes 2:12 says, "Then I turned to consider wisdom, madness, and folly, for what all the king's successors will be like. He will do what has already been done." What's the story of a king? You come into ruling, you defend your kingdom, you improve what you can improve, you do all of this life and all of this labor and all of these resources, into building this kingdom. And then the next king comes along, and what is his task? Exactly the same thing. And then we look at the bigger picture, and we look at even the kingdom of Israel. And we look at what King David had built and established there in Jerusalem, and we see what Solomon had done, and how many generations did it take for that kingdom to be taken over, for that kingdom to be defeated, for another conqueror to come in, for another empire to come in, He says, I consider all of these things, and I wonder, what will the person next build off of? And the reality is that he will almost completely have to start over. Verse 13, he says, I realized that there is an advantage to wisdom over folly. Whew. Like the advantage of light over darkness. You ever been in a really dark room and wish you had a little bit of light? I'm notorious for it. I'll just go in and grab it real quick. Now is a good example. As I'm leaving early in the mornings, I'm trying to let the baby sleep. And I'm like sneaking around the room, trying to not make any noise in the dark and just kind of squinting and trying to pull out what I need and get going where I'm going. Man, light would make a big difference. It'd be so much faster, easier. How many projects I've tried to do in the dark instead of just working out to go grab a light and bring it in the room. There is an advantage to wisdom over folly, like the advantage of light over darkness. Verse 14 says, the wise person has eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. The wise, the fool, walking in light, walking in dark. Now, we can accept that as a premise, right? Even outside of God, can we? Just in human terms, in human nature, you got a really wise person and a really foolish person. Which one's going to have probably the more like successful or easier life? Most of the time, the wise person. He's going to have a real advantage because the decisions that he's making isn't digging the hole deeper. And so as life comes along, the wise person will tend to fare better than the foolish person. But then he says this, yet I also know that one fate comes to them both. The wisest man and the most foolish man, the man who makes all the right decisions, does all the right things, makes every right decision all the way through his life to the very end, amasses much, creates much, has much reputation, is known as being wise, has been wise beyond all things that someone could imagine being wise with, and the complete opposite. The dude out there chasing the wind in the field while everyone else is working and everyone else is diligent and doing, and then you got this goober over here. And people are just shaking their head. The teacher says, as I examined wisdom, as I examined foolishness, I also knew that one fate comes to them both. So I said to myself, what happens to the fool will also happen to me. Why then have I been overly wise? And I said to myself that this is also futile. For, just like the fool, there is no lasting remembrance of the wise, since in the days to come both will be forgotten. How is it that the wise person dies just like the fool? And in that, the teacher, imagine in all of his pursuit of wisdom and everything he has built and everything he's created, as he's writing the summary, he says, I've pursued wisdom to the farthest reach of wisdom, to try to understand this world, to make sense of it, and to make things right. And where did it leave him? In verse 17, he said, therefore I hated life, because the work that was done under the sun was distressing to me. For everything is vapor, futile, and a pursuit of the wind. That is the limit. Wisdom is better than folly, but it cannot keep the wise from dying. The wise and successful die, and with them eventually so their legacy. And the same for the fool. Both are eventually forgotten. And that means wisdom, though good, cannot become your foundation. So in a highlight, wisdom really is better. I encourage you to become wise. Don't be foolish. Don't throw your life away. Don't go out chasing the wind. Look to the Lord, look to his teaching, but pursue wisdom, to be wise, to make good decisions. That's great. Wisdom is better, but wisdom has limits, and death exposes what wisdom cannot do. It can improve how you live. It can't change the destination. Therefore, wisdom cannot be your foundation. And so here's the points I want to make with this morning. And number one is this: do not confuse wisdom with salvation. I know so many people out there, they're like, well, if I could just understand God, why does he do this? Why does he do this? Why, if I could understand and wrap my head around and fully, like A to Z, and write the definition, this is God, then I could trust him. Anybody else feel that way? Like, God, if I just understood you more, I would, but if I understood God completely, I would be God. And I already know, I've lived my life, I have made my decisions, I have been wise and foolish. I am not a good God. Things go really, really poorly if I have control of the keys of this world. And I think so often we go, okay, well, now that I feel like I know enough about God, then I will just do the things that God has told me to do, and that would be wisdom, to do the things that he has told me to do. But the wisdom doesn't fix the eternal problem. The wisdom in and of itself doesn't fix the sin problem. The wisdom in and of itself doesn't fix that every single person born into this world is facing a death, no matter what they accomplish or no matter what mistakes they make. And the only way into eternity is through Jesus. Be wise, but never convince yourself that you're going to be more wise than God. And as the believer, our pursuit of wisdom should be to seek him, to seek his wisdom, to seek his knowledge, to seek his understanding. Lord, fill me with the things of you that I may know you more. But ultimately, let me understand, I'll never be you. I'll never understand everything that you do. And many days, that's going to drive me to places of great frustration, right? And I don't think you need to be ashamed of that either. I wake up days and go, God, why? Why is this like this? And I can try to understand it. And he's not afraid of me trying to understand it. He's not afraid of me seeking wisdom to move through it. But even if I understand it, it's not changing the destination. And at some point, my security is going to be based on whether he is God or not whether I am wise or not. And so number two is this: do not make knowledge about God a substitute for trusting God. We're told this in the scriptures, like even the enemy knows God's word. Even the enemy can quote scripture. Even the enemy, the demons of the world can quote and know who God is. But he is not their Lord. And there's a dangerous line in our Christian world where we convince ourselves that being super knowledgeable about God means that we have actually given our life to him. Man, and we talk about this a lot, like just because you know who he is, making him Lord of your life, like the phrase, and then I gave my life to God. When can you truly give your life to something and not change everything about who you are? If I was going to give my life to downhill skiing, I would not be here on Sundays. I couldn't be, because I would need to spend every day out there downhill skiing, because I've given my life to it. I would have to leave behind so many of the things that I wanted to do because I've given my life to this. It's a drastic statement. And we give our life to something all of the time, but we don't actually give our life to it. And my encouragement is just as the teacher here is encouraging us in Ecclesiastes that, guys, pursue knowledge of the Lord. That is great. He has given us the ability to know him. Isn't that a blessing? He's not distant. He is not far off. He is not stiff-arming us as we pursue him, to know more about him, to understand more about him in wisdom. But our understanding cannot save us. And that's the true wisdom. Without him, there is no hope, no matter how wise we become. Learning truth about God is good, but if knowing about him becomes our way of avoiding to surrender to him, then we've missed the point. One of my favorite phrases: you can lead a horse to water. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Wisdom can lead you to God, but it can't make you trust him. That's all it's designed to do, to be light in a dark place, to expose the folly of this world, and to show you where wisdom truly comes from, to show you the end of yourself, which is exactly where the teacher comes to, right? All that I've amassed, all that I know, all that I've done, who will remember? But God. Right? Wisdom can lead you towards God, but it can't make you trust him. And with that, I would say that you may not be the wisest person. You can still trust him. And he's not going to steer you away from getting to know him more. But if knowing everything is keeping you from trusting him, it's going to be a long road. So let wisdom take its proper place. Receive it, ask God for it, grow in it, walk in it, but do not ask wisdom to be what only God can be. Because wisdom is a good gift, but it makes a terrible foundation. Let's pray.